Now, I would love to tell you that I trust God in all things all the time because I'm a pastor and I went to seminary and I've been a Christian my whole life. But the truth is, I do not trust God all the time, and it's in those times that I have a lot of anxiety. I have what doctors call hypochondria. Any other hypochondriacs out there? Yeah? I won't watch any kind of doctor shows because I think I have whatever it is that show is having, you know? And so I'm just thinking, I can't do this. And so, and that's where my anxiety manifests. And it manifests in me thinking I always have the worst thing possible. So whenever I see my doctor, she says, James, what are we dying from today? And so I said, I got this thing and this thing. Okay, well, we're all family here. We're all adults here. So I'm going to share with you the most embarrassing story of my life. Melody's like, please don't do this. But I'm going to have to anyway. So I'm watching TV one night, and I feel myself choking. Like, what's going on? There's something wrong with my throat. So I look in the mirror, and I felt, you know the little punchy bag thingy at the back of your throat? It's growing. It's getting swollen. I think something's wrong with it. So I go to the doctor and I make an appointment and I go sit down and I see the doctor and she said, James, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm really nervous. She goes, I could tell you're nervous because your blood pressure is spiking. And I'm like, I am really nervous. And she goes, well, tell me what's wrong. I'm like, I think, you know the thing that's in the back of your throat, the punchy bag thing? She goes, well, okay, I'm trying to follow you. My vulva. I think my vulva is swollen. If you don't know what that is, take a health class. I'm not going to explain that to you. She said, I beg your pardon. I go, my vulva is swollen. Can you take a look at it? And she said, uvula. Uvula. I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know, same thing. She says, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. It's not at all. You need to take a health class, James. It's not the same. And she actually laughed so hard, she took off her glasses because she said, you're actually serious. And she kept laughing. And it didn't make me, but when she started laughing, my blood pressure actually went down. Because I'm like, maybe I am okay. Maybe everything's going to be okay. And then it's in those moments where you're able to kind of calm down because your anxiety actually manifests in your physical being. It's true. Whenever you're anxious inside, it comes out. Maybe you're anxious about something and you snap at your kids. Maybe you're anxious about something and you snap at your spouse. Maybe you're anxious about something and you don't get the job interview very well because you're physically just kind of all wound up. And you don't like that about yourself, but you don't know how to stop it. And it's where that anxiety is manifesting, and it's always a big problem. Now, guys, none of us like to be rejected, and none of us like to have anybody tell us that they don't want us around. But what makes it worse is when they're rejecting you for your anxiety. Has that ever happened to you? Your anxiety's flared up, and then you're short with somebody, and then they don't like you anymore, and you're like, I don't even like this about me. I'm annoying myself, and I don't like being like this, but this isn't who I really am. I want to be my true self, because if I'm my true self, I don't think maybe you would reject me. It's actually very scientific. Elizabeth Earnshaw says this, quote, when someone is flooded, you are not experiencing them, you are experiencing their knee-jerk reaction, their stress reaction. So when you're stressed, people aren't experiencing you. They are experiencing the worst part of you, your knee-jerk reaction. And then a lot of times we get rejected and we're like, but that's not who I really want to be. That's not who I want to portray myself as. You know, I've always asked people, how do you calm down? What works for you? And it's true. They said, I get in the Word. I get into God's Word. Guys, I have anxiety. But when I'm preparing for a message, my anxiety starts to go away. Why? Because I'm in the Word. I'm actually reading it, and I'm meditating on it, and I'm praying about it, and my anxiety actually starts to go down because I'm getting into that Word. Now, we're getting in the Word right now. We're talking about Esther. Now, think about your anxiety level if you're Esther. Esther is picked to be the queen. Her husband is the king, Xerxes, or Ahasuerus, and he's like, okay, now you're my queen. She's there. Then her cousin tells her, the king is going to annihilate all of our people, all of the Jewish people. You've got to go talk to him. She's stressed out. She's like, I don't know if I could do this. He's like, you better do this because this is why you're queen. And so she's like, I guess I'm going to have to. And then her cousin Mordecai is disliked by another guy, Haman, And that guy has convinced the king to wipe out all the Jews. And so now she's stuck in the middle of all of this, and she does not know what to do next. But what she does is she calms herself down, and she develops a strategic plan. So this is what happens. In Esther 5:4, she says, "If it pleases the king," Esther replied, "let the king, together with Haman, come today to a banquet I have prepared for him." Now, this is really interesting because Haman wants to kill her. He essentially doesn't care if she lives or dies, but he wants to wipe out Mordecai and all the other Jews. So she's actually inviting him to this banquet. So everybody's like, whoa. Now, most of us would be like, you're trying to kill me. Get him, right? She doesn't do that. She's like, hey, calmly, come over here and let's all meet. And look what happens next. In Esther 5:6, then I'm going to read verse 9. As they were drinking wine, the king again asked Esther, "Now what is your petition? It will be given you. And what is your request? Even up to half the kingdom, it will be granted." Again, he meets her in a calm way, and he's letting her know, you're important to me. And in verse 9, Haman went out that day happy in high spirits, but when he saw Mordecai, Esther's cousin, at the king's gate and observed that he neither rose nor showed fear in his presence, he was filled with rage against Mordecai. So you got Haman thinking, okay, finally we're going to get rid of this guy. But not only is he not scared, he's laughing with the king, and now he's angry. Like, my plan isn't working. Now, Esther has a plan. She's got a strategy. This is what we're talking about today. If you are nervous or anxious about something, you have to have a plan. You cannot just go, I'm going to see how I do today and hopefully it works. That will never work because your anxiety is going to keep going over and over and over. You got to have a plan, and that's what Esther does. Let's take hypochondriacs, for example. A lot of times, guys, when we get anxious, a lot of people, we just go to our separate corners. We don't want to tell anybody we're anxious. Maybe we're nervous or scared, or we think somebody's going to laugh at us or whatever. So we go off on our own and we try to take care of it on our own. What would happen if a hypochondriac said that? And he goes, I've got these medical issues, so you know what? I'm going to handle it on my own. I'm not going to include anybody in it, and I'll Google my symptoms. That'll be good. Now my stress will go away. Does that work? No, because you're not supposed to handle it on your own. You're not supposed to do that. Guys, remember this. To get full access to your mind, you have to first calm your body. Have you ever seen anybody hyperventilate? When you're hyperventilating, you feel like you can't breathe. But ironically, all you're doing is breathing. You're just like, what do you got to do? You've got to calm your breathing down. Calm your breathing down. Then you can breathe. So for Esther, because she's calm, everyone around her is calm. Okay, and there's a reason for this, guys. And you really have to remember this. Emotions are transferable. You could see this from when you have a toddler. And if a toddler is running and a toddler slips and they scrape their knee and their knee gets scratched, what's the first thing that a parent does? You're okay. You're okay. Oh, look at you fell. You're okay. What does the toddler do? The toddler calms down. Or if you have like a helicopter parent, they're like, oh my gosh, we have to go to the hospital. The kid's going to scream his head off forever, right? Because emotions are transferable. That's what it looks like. An example would be if you're at your company and your boss is a jerk and your boss walks in the room, everybody's mood goes down. Even them walking in, everybody's mood goes down. But if you got somebody coming in, or maybe they're hugging, or they bring donuts, everybody's mood goes up. Emotions are transferable. Please remember this, guys. Please remember this. Now, here's how this applies to our relationships. Calm bodies can calm other bodies. So remember that, guys, especially in your relationships, whether you're friends or your spouse or best friend, whatever it is, relatives. Calm bodies calm other bodies. There's actually a name for this. It's called co-regulation, and it's the process of a person with a regulated nervous system sharing their calm state with someone with a dysregulated nervous system. Okay, so when your partner begins to react angrily, you're going to now get confrontation. If they're excited, you're going to get that too. Whatever they have, that's what you're going to get, and it happens more often than not. So you cannot share with someone else something you don't already have. You've got to be making sure that you're good before you go into that situation. Because if you come in and you're yelling at somebody, they're not going to go, what seems to be the problem? They're going to go, are you yelling at me? And they're going to go right back at you. So you got to make sure, if you've got to talk to somebody, calm yourself down. Again, this could look like with your spouse or your friends or your coworkers. So you have to regulate yourself first. So what does that look like? Self-regulation is the ability to control your behavior, emotions, and thoughts. It's the pursuit of long-term goals, and it's what empowers us to fight through discomfort for the sake of the big picture value. Now, if you know somebody like this, it's impressive. It really is. But most of us, when we're stressed out, we go into full-blown stressed out mode. And you cannot have any conversations with people because it's not going to happen. I don't want to talk about politics at all, so I'm not talking about politics. But the other day, I was watching the news, and I saw somebody talking about what Elon Musk is doing in Doge. And I counted 3 different times this politician compared Elon Musk to Hitler. And when I see that, I'm thinking, I know automatically I can't have a conversation with you because you're in La La Land. Elon Musk is not Hitler. You may not like the Doge thing. You may not like what he's doing out how that's happening. You may not like who's fired and who's not fired. But Hitler killed millions of innocent Jews. They're not the same. I don't know why in our day and age we throw Hitler around like it's just another word. The guy was one of the most evil people in history, killing millions of innocent people in the most barbaric of ways. So no, an audit on the government is not the same thing, okay? So it's like, calm down. I'm not going to be able to have a conversation with people like that. You just gotta calm down, right? I think I've told you this before, but it's just, people ask me my opinion sometimes, and if I give them my opinion, it's like they call me all these names. You ask me my opinion. I'm not telling you to believe what I'm saying. Just, then don't want my opinion, don't ask me. So here are some ways you could self-regulate. First, you got to start by focusing on God. Okay, you got to breathe slowly. You can move your body playfully, have some fun, jump rope, play some hoops, sleeping, and laughing with people you love. Isolation equals anxiety, just so you know. So if you're going to be in isolation, you're going to think of the worst case scenarios over and over and over and over again. So if you're in isolation, if you're in isolation right now, I'm telling you right now, you're either suffering from this or you're about to, because your mind's going to start to play tricks on you all the time. So you need to make sure you're laughing with people. Guys, one of the reasons I love coming to church is because I know I'm going to laugh with my best friends. No matter what's happening during my week, I'm going to see people that I love and that love me, and it's worth being here so I can experience those relationships. So you got to be able to do that. So the king knows something seems to be off here. He sees Esther's calm. He sees Haman is probably sweating like crazy and is nervous and is probably just, drinking a lot. And the king's like, okay, something's going on. So in Esther 7:3, the queen answered, if I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition. And spare my people. This is my request. At this point, she doesn't know if she's going to live or die, but she's got enough faith in God, and she's calm enough to say this. She says, for I and my people have been sold to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. If we had merely been sold as male and female slaves, I would have kept quiet, because no such distress would justify disturbing the king. The king is shocked. He's like, what? He's probably knee-deep in some wine. He definitely had a drinking issue. So then he says this in Esther 7:5. King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, who is he? Where is he? The man who had dared do such a thing. At this point, if you're Haman, you're like, okay, it's good seeing you guys. I got to go. I got a thing. I got to bail, all right? King's like, who is it? Who's this guy that's doing all of these things to you? What does it look like? Who is he? Esther looks right at Haman and says, him. Whew, that dude's dead. King goes, execute him. Get rid of him. Haman is executed. Esther is elevated. Because she was able to meet this with calm way. If Esther would have come to the king and said, you call yourself a king? This guy's trying to kill my people, and you call yourself a king? That's not happening. She's calm. She's reasoning. She's talking calmly with him. And he's the one that's more riled up than she is at that point. Okay? Now, Esther, growing up Jewish, would have already known how to handle these types of situations. Because Esther, growing up the way she did, would have known that there is a season for everything. Yes, there's a season to be angry. Yes, there's a season to be sad. Yes, there's a season for everything. You might think, well, where am I getting this from? In the Old Testament, Ecclesiastes 3:1 says this. There's a time for everything and a season for every activity under the sun. This is what Esther would have known. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear down, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. What do workers gain from their toil? I have seen the burden God had laid on the human race. He has made everything beautiful in its time. He has also set eternity in the human heart. Yet no one can fathom what God has done from the beginning. There's a season and a time for everything. Seasons turn. Somebody should write a song about that. For every season. But what it's saying is there is a time for everything. Okay, all of our physical reactions are connected to deep feelings, guys. And when a feeling comes up, you've got to lean into that feeling. This is what humans do not like. We don't like pain, so what do? We drink, or we smoke something, or we look at, online at certain things we shouldn't look at or whatever, so that I can escape reality for a while. I don't want to feel, because those things are too much for me to handle, so I've got to escape them in some way. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to handle it. I only want to feel the good feelings. And guys, that's where we are in as a society right now. That's exactly where we are. I only want to feel good feelings. If you've got bad news, don't tell me. If you got bad news, then you preach hate or you're not kind. I only want good vibes. It doesn't work that way. That's not the human experience. What God is saying is there's a season for everything. But I lost this person that I love, and I'm sorry for you. But you will one day be gone as well, because there's a season for everything. And instead of escaping those feelings, lean into those feelings, because it's part of the human experience. So instead of just, that hurts too much. Guys, so many of us have this closet that we've locked and that holds all of our hurt and pain. And we are just walking around like zombies because we only want good vibes. You got to open those doors. You got to experience it. God's going to equip you to do it, but there is a season for everything on life. Everything. So when speaking of self-regulation, guys, you got to remember there's two components. There's rhythms and there's responses. Rhythms are the routines you build into your everyday life, and responses are what you do to restore your calm when your buttons get pushed. Those are your rhythms and your responses. The Jewish people had a lot of rhythms and responses that they follow. And Esther would have, again, had this. They pray multiple times a day. They have mantras that they have memorized. They take a Sabbath, and then they have regular times to fast. Jesus, who was also Jewish, would have had this custom as well. There were times where he would party. He had parties. His first miracle was at a party. There are times where he wanted to be left alone. There are times where he was just, with a couple of people. There were times where he was a lot of people. There were times where he fasted. He was praying multiple times a day. So he had these rhythms and routines as well. We see what Paul writes here to the church in Corinth, 1 Corinthians 9:27. No, I strike a blow to my body and make it my slave, so that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified for the prize. Meaning, I got to take care of myself first, so that way I don't get burned out. So that way I could practice what I'm preaching to you guys. Now here's what this could look like for you guys. Devotions. You got to get into the Word. There's no way around it. If you want to listen to it, then listen to it. But you got to know what God says. Otherwise, you make up all your own rules, and then you're your own mini-God. I think God should think this, so that's what you got to make sure you're getting in the Word. Being in a small group, I know that we had to postpone Rooted, but men, we meet every other week. Women, there's a lot of women's events that you should make sure you get into. Get a time to do that. There's days of rest. You got to just have your rest. There's exercise. You got to make sure you're exercising. And there's just coffee with a friend once a week. And this is really a time to just get to know let people get to know you. So if you're stressed out and you're going through something hard, it's so nice to be able to talk to somebody you trust and just say, hey, this is where I'm at right now. Now, a lot of people will look at that list and they go, I don't have time for devotions. I don't have time to pray. I don't have time to hang out with my friends. I work for a living and I'm busy. Guys, you can go ahead and do that, but when you're cranky and nobody wants to be around you, don't blame me. Because you're the one that's holding on to all this stuff, trying to do all these things, and you just can't because you're not made for that. You're not designed to do that. And by the way, guys, if you're going to be sharing your faith, who would want your faith? I wouldn't. If you're some cranky person that's judging everybody and telling everybody what to do, and, if you don't go to church, you're a terrible person. If you don't read the Bible, you're bad, and you're going to burn in hell, it's like, why would I want to hang out with you? You're cranky. You need some rest. You need to go to coffee with somebody and hang out and just chill out a little bit. So, why do we talk about this? Remember, guys, it only takes one person to change the trajectory of a relationship. We are all here because somebody cared about us to invite us. That's why we're here, and it only takes one person. Guys, that's why I'm so focused on what we're doing here with this church. I like the size of our facility. I like what we're doing here because I have the ability to get to know all of you, and you have the ability to get to know me, okay? And you, whether you know it or not, can help change my life for the better. You know things and do things that I don't know and I can't do. So when we serve together and when we're in life together, you make me better, I make you better, and that's one of the things that I love. What I don't want is I don't want just a bunch of people going to some auditorium to see some speaker. I don't know who that person is. They don't know who I am. I want to be able to know our people and know that, guys, don't think that you're here taking up space. You have something that I need because you do things that I can't do. And vice versa. All of us are a part of this body that we have as a church. So as we end this series, guys, just ask yourself, what is it you're giving to your relationships? Are you giving stress? Are you giving worry? Are you giving anxiousness? I know what we all want to give, but literally, what are you giving? I mean, look at the people close to you. What am I giving them? What does that look like? Again, guys, calm bodies. There are literally studies that show this, you guys. If somebody is going like kind of haywire and you hold their hand, they're going to calm down. Studies show this. In fact, in hospitals, they show this. When you are yelling, when somebody's yelling in the hospital, somebody hears them yelling and their cortisol levels go up, which is the stress hormone in their brain. It actually, them hearing yelling gets that jacked up. Because we're not meant to be like that. Guys, I would just really caution you and plead with you. If there is somebody that triggers you, maybe we all have this, where somebody is triggering you, their name drives you crazy. Just their name. Like it's a family member or a friend or somebody who's hurt you, and when you hear their name, you just like, oh. If you're going to see them again, you're going to have a plan. Be strategic. Don't just wing it because that doesn't work. Because it's just going to get you worked up over and over and over and over again. You've got to have a plan. That's what this is talking about. It sounds kind of hokey, but it's true. Guys, when I'm ratcheted up, Melanie knows how to calm me down. There have been times where I actually had an anxiety attack. I took off my necklace one time because I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was choking. We're at Disneyland and the fireworks show was starting, but she has a way of calming me down. Sometimes she's not in the mood. Sometimes she doesn't want to hear it, if I'm being honest. And I'm like, Melanie, you got to check this out. She'll be in the other room. And sometimes she's not very nice to Pastor James in this way. Because I said, Melanie, come in this room, please. My arm hurts. So, you're fine. Can you check it out? Maybe it's your vulva. Go to the doctor. So sometimes she's not very nice to me. Do we have an edit button for the live? What's live? Okay. Here's the thing, guys. You gotta be yourself. Don't be phony. I don't like phony people. Personally, I have a problem with phony people. I don't like it. It's like when I see some of these politicians talking, I'm like, oh, I can't stand it. Because it's like, I know that's not what you think. You're just saying this to try to get votes and all that stuff. Like, I want to know how you really think. Even if I disagree with you, I don't care. But at least I want to know how you really think. And so I don't like phony people. And so to be honest with you guys, and I don't mind calling out fellow Christians if this is it, or even the church sometimes. But I was going to church, and guys, honestly, man, I just saw a lot of phony people. I mean, I felt like it was like I was at Washington, D.C. with a lot of politicians. Because I would be in the room after church, and now the way some of these guys were talking, it was all about, the money or how they can kind of slide this guy out so they can get this office and all this other stuff. And I was just like, I don't like any of this stuff. And I remember Melanie said, I don't either. And we said, well, let's start a church where we can just be real, where I'm going to be up here telling super embarrassing stories, but let's just all be real with each other. And whether people agree with me or not, I don't care. I just want to be my authentic self so then they can be their authentic self so we can really get to know each other. Because at the end of the day, guys, this life goes away. And all the things we try to present to people that we have it all figured out and we got the perfect family and we got the perfect everything, that all goes away. It all ends. And so I want to be around some real people. And whatever you're struggling with, whatever it is you're having a hard time with, I'd rather hang out with those people. That's my crew. I'd rather be at watching a game with those guys with a beer and pizza than a bunch of over-judgmental people that are just saying the right things up front so that they can keep their position in a church. That's what I want. And so that's why we started this. Because we believe that God can do all things. And it's great news. And let's celebrate that. But instead of trying to be good, then you could do something, let's just do what he asks us to do now while we're messy. Because guys, if I waited to be good enough to be a pastor, I still wouldn't be able to do it because I'm still messy. And that's what I like. We're just like a collection of messy people. So if you're a messy person, raise your hand. There we go. If you do not raise your hand, I will be praying for you because you suffer from pride. Okay. But that's what it is, guys. Remember this. You are created for a reason. God has a purpose for your life. Otherwise, the second we become Christians, we get zapped to heaven because there's no need for us. That's not what he wants. What he wants is for us to make an impact for his kingdom. And you cannot do that if you're not getting your own house in order. And I'm not telling you to be perfect because I'm far from perfect. Melanie's like, amen. But I'm far from perfect. But here's what I do know. If you could just meet people where they're at, be who you are, and then share what God's done in your life, you're going to have a much better chance of allowing them to see who God could be in their life. Guys, we're just starting this church. We've got a lot going on. I'm just going to give you a couple quick rundowns. We've got men's ministry. We've got women's ministry. We've got Easter. I can't even believe Easter is going to be coming up before you know it. On Good Friday, we are going to be here, and we're going to be having a presentation of The Passion of the Christ. It is not for children. It's a very adult movie, but it's the best way we can get into to the Easter season. And then on Easter, I need help with people helping me figure out a glow-in-the-dark Easter egg hunt. So if you want to help with that project, please sign the card. And so we've got a lot coming up. There's a lot of things that we can get excited about. We're going to need all hands on deck, and I cannot wait for Easter when we get a lot of new people to see who we are. They could see this collection of imperfect, flawed people who just want to be themselves, and I can't wait for it. So thanks so much for helping build this church with a bunch of regular people. Okay, let's pray. Father, I just thank you so much, God, that I don't have to be perfect, God, that you're not waiting for me to be good enough. Because of you, I am. Because of you, we all are. Because of you. And God, I just want to never try to present something that we're not or try to be something we're not. Father, I pray that people, when they come to this church, that they would feel comfortable, that they wouldn't feel like they have to know the songs or they feel like they have to know the Bible or they could just be themselves, come in so that we could plant this together for you. Father, we thank you in advance for the lives that are going to be changed. We thank you in advance for the baptisms that are going to occur here. We thank you in advance for the people that are going to get to know you here, God. We thank you for that. And we thank you for using us, just regular us, to do what you can do, only you can do. So God, I thank you for everything you're doing here, and we love you and we praise you, and it's in your name. Amen.
South Hills Church, I just want to take a moment and say thank you for watching our service online. Whether you're watching it for the first time or you're watching it again because you enjoyed the service so much from the weekend, I'd like to take a moment and dive into our giving. Every week we give people the opportunity to give back and give to the local church so that God can continue to bless your lives and bless your finances. Here at South Hills, we believe that everything comes from God. We believe that He's the one that chose us and brought us into this world, gave us our gifts and talents and abilities. And I just want you to know that when we give, we are giving back what God has already given to us. If you've ever seen any of our envelopes at a South Hills campus, you'll see on there that it says, every week at South Hills, your generosity is giving people the opportunity to live a better story. And there's a scripture on there in Matthew chapter 6, verse 21 that says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So I want to encourage you today to click down below and set up your giving, whether it's for the first time or whether you're doing reoccurring giving. We have 4 ways to give here at South Hills. 1, you can do it in person at any of our campuses through an envelope. Or 2, you can actually text any amount that you would like to 84321. And the 3rd way is to download our Church Center app. I encourage you to do this one because the Church Center app gives you opportunity to stay connected with our church and your campuses. It's a great tool and resource for you to know what's going on. And the 4th way to give is to give online. You can go to southhills.org/give and you can set up your giving there. Whether you're a guest of our church or whether you are a member of our church, or whether you simply just like to watch our services, I encourage you to trust God with your finances so that He can bless and anoint your finances, and you can be trusting God in this journey of living life to the fullest. I love you, and thank you for watching our online service today.